Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here. Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here.
A small rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio,
your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Hey, look at that. Rebel Force Radio back with the weekly podcast, the flagship show here at RFR headquarters. You know, we just wrapped up our big Acolyte after show series. We had a bonus in there. We had 8 episodes. We actually had 8 episodes of Acolyte and 9 episodes of the after show. I think that might be a first. We had to get that fresh take, hot take, right after the season/series, we don't know yet, finale was dropped on Disney Plus. Then we came back earlier this week with a proper, to take nothing away from FJ DeSanto, but a proper RFR after show looking at the Acolyte. But no, we're not going to be breaking down the Acolyte here this week on Rebel Force Radio. There will be plenty of time to digest and deal with all those ramifications. So we do have a great show for you coming up on the program. It wasn't that long ago that we had an incredible radio find, courtesy of course, Jimmy Mack, of Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher in a studio promoting that original press tour of A New Hope back in 1977. And I hear we have another rare radio find. So we're looking forward to that. That's coming up. Also, we're going to go in the cantina with director and writer James Cox. James Cox, the director of Wonderland film back in 2003. Big hit. And it really brought a lot of attention on him with that film. And he's also a big fan or a big friend of Kyle Newman. So we are mutual friends there. He's got a new book out this week called Grand Theft A.I. It's his debut novel. So we're going to talk to him about all things Star Wars. Obviously, he's a big Star Wars fan or he wouldn't be here on Rebel Force Radio. Plus some listener feedback, an outrageous, unthinkable news story. It's been a while since we've had one of those. And if there's time, of course, we'll do a little Star Wars in pop culture. So if you're new to the program, and many of you have found us through our YouTube after shows, if that's the case, introductions may be in order. My name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Welcome back to the weekly RFR. Man, it's good to be back. I'm looking forward to talking about all things Star Wars. We've been so hyper-focused on the Acolyte, but as we all know, there are over 4 decades of great Star Wars to discuss, dissect, analyze, break down, and celebrate. And that's what RFR is about each and every week. Thanks to everyone for the great feedback we received for the interview with Carrie Fisher's brother, Todd.
That was
Fisher.
A lot of fun.
Man, what a great guy. And somebody who has stories till the sun comes up about not only his world-famous family and his sister, Princess Leia, Carrie Fisher, but about the history of Hollywood in general. And he was dropping all kind of bombshells on us a few weeks ago, and you guys have sent us a lot of positive feedback about that interview, and we have read all of your comments and really appreciate it. And we appreciate the opportunity that we have to be able to share this kind of insight into the history of Star Wars with our listening audience. So we're so glad you guys have tagged along with us as we celebrate our own personal Star Wars fandom with some famous friends along the way, or brothers of famous friends, as the case may be with Todd Fisher. So
Yeah.
I went and dug up our old interview with Carrie Fisher that we conducted with her way back when. And it was an interesting back and forth between a couple of super fans and Hollywood Star Wars royalty, Carrie Fisher. And I mentioned it during the interview with Todd that at one point during our conversation with Carrie, as she was wolfing down chicken fingers while talking to us, dipping in barbecue sauce, she did reach out and grab my hand at one point. And I still have not washed that hand to this day. I mean, it's, it had an impact on me, son.
Man,
Yeah.
Where's that hand been? Over the
It's
last,
only
what?
been, 14 years?
Yeah, I was gonna say. All right. Well, lots to do. And so let's get right to it. Let's check in with some listener mail.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
All right. We are going to we're going to go old school here. We're going to go to the email inbox. And here is an email from Ryan. Ryan from Australia. Ryan writes, the idea of mashing up parts of Star Wars dialogue to form the name Rebel Force Radio has been spinning around in my head for a while now, especially since it dawned on me that the name Dio is said in The Rise of Skywalker. Okay, anyway, here is my meager attempt at creating a quick tag for you. Feel free to make a much better one using the idea if you want or not. I don't care. Keep being great. May the Force be with you. Ryan from Australia. Well, you know, the name Rebel Force Radio, when we were starting this particular podcast, we went back and forth and what would be a good name. And we came up with Rebel Force Radio, and it was because of that scene of Darth Vader when he goes to the Emperor in Return of the Jedi and says, and we play it every week here.
A small rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
That's where that came from. So I'm guessing I know where he's going to get the Rebel Force part. I don't know about radio. So shall we play it?
No, Ryan from Australia is a little more clever than that.
Oh, yeah?
And he pulls the Rebel and the Force from separate places.
Oh, okay.
But the difficult part is finding a moment in Star Wars where the characters are saying radio. Now, we do know that there are many times in the sequel trilogy where they say Rey. Duh. She's the protagonist of the whole thing. Rey. Right. But where do you get the Dio from? Where do you get the second half of radio? You have Rey, and then you got the Dio. Well, thanks to The Rise of Skywalker, you have a character, a droid named Dio, voiced by J.J. Abrams. So this is what Ryan from Australia has been waiting years for, is the Dio part of radio. I mean, you get Rey constantly throughout the sequels, but you have to wait till episode 9 to get the second half of that word, Dio, radio. So he gives it a shot here with his expert editing skills. Ryan from Australia has provided us with an audio file of what he calls the RFR radio tag. So merely by plucking out dialogue from the Star Wars films, Ryan from Australia has been able to create a moment where the actual Star Wars characters are saying in cooperation Rebel Force Radio. So let's hear the results of his efforts, and we'll see if it's actually effective. Go ahead, Jason.
Rebel Force.
Oh, it's the Boyega scream.
Right. Yeah.
Rebel Force.
Okay. Now I'm hearing it a few times. Okay, I'm getting it. I'm getting it.
It starts to work. Play it like 3 times in a row, and
All
we'll
right.
see if it actually has an impact.
Okay.
Rebel Force. Rebel Force. Rebel Force.
I like that Tarkin Rebel. I like that.
Or was that Vader?
No, I think
Can I hear it again?
it's Vader doing Force. I believe it's Tarkin with the Rebel.
Rebel Force.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. Come on, JJ. Couldn't you give us a more clear D-O? Like D-O, like that, but damn.
Yeah.
Damn.
He's got to say it so fast.
Yeah.
Deal. I think Ryan did a great job. I love it.
Yeah, that's outstanding work, Ryan from Australia. And that will be used maybe once or twice more in this show. And then never heard from again. But I get what you're doing here, Ryan. I just don't like the Dio part because I don't think JJ delivers as the voice of the droid.
Yeah,
Dio.
it's really not a referendum on Ryan's work. It's on JJ.
Yeah, this all comes down to JJ. Yeah. JJ is failing us again when it comes to Star Wars. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that isn't a failure. Star Wars fans did not fail to fund this incredible Mos Eisley Cantina playset, the Haslab. I know that these crowdfunding projects can be somewhat controversial, but Jim, after the sail barge, after the Mando ship, the
Razor Crest.
The Razor Crest, thank you. The Razor Crest.
And the Rebels Ghost.
The Rebels
which is
Ghost.
Yet to be released.
Yeah. Now, so these are all, part of the vintage collection. I was really pleased that they went that way with this, because when they've gone off and done alternate pieces for different lines, like Reva's lightsaber from Kenobi, like the Rancor and the Black Series scale, they've not been successful. Everything that they've done in the vintage collection scale and it's part of that line has funded. And the Cantina was no exception. I got in on the first day. I was like, yep, I'm down with this. So I went ahead and got the deluxe version, which comes with a few more of the alcoves than the base model. But really, the Cantina for me was gravy. What I wanted was those action figures. And they had a lot of bonus tiers right out of the base, or right out of the initial offering. You were going to get a Wooher. And then with the various tiers, only one did not get funded, but we did get the Tonica sisters, which is incredible after all those years of being told that this could never happen. We could never have Tonica sister action figures because of who knows. There was all kinds of rumor. I don't think there was ever an official word. It was
one of the two didn't sign an appropriate bit of paperwork that was necessary to merchandise the character. I think that's what it all comes down to. And that particular actress passed away by the time Lucasfilm was actually considering to market action figures of these two sisters. You can see them in the original Star Wars. They're standing on the left side of the bar. They look like twins. They have braids. Twins with braids. Ring any bells, Acolyte?
Hey, we made a promise. No Acolyte talk this week.
We did, me and Jason did say to ourselves before starting the show, it's like, hey, let's take a little break from the Acolyte. Why don't we this week? And so sorry if I violated my promise.
No, that's right. I did right out of the gate. I talked a little bit of Acolyte, but nice to be talking vintage collection, Star Wars action figures, where it all started. Yes. So yeah, I was very excited. So we got the Tonica sisters and the Wooher were part of the base offering, and then the first tier, or was the I don't know. Wait a minute, tier. Oh yeah, so tier 2, at 14,000 backers was a new version of Neighboring Leeds, So that's exciting.
Weird conehead alien wearing a gas mask. And I never realized that this guy standing at the bar had 4 arms until the action figure reveal. When they first put this character out as an action figure, oh my God, he has 4 arms? Really? I had no idea. You couldn't tell that from the photography provided in the 77 original Star Wars film. But he's part of the pack-ins. You also get Greedo, as you said, Wooher, as you said, the Tonica sisters, as you said. But the original Wolfman character from the Cantina is not going to be included in this offering because it didn't get 1,700 backers.
1,000.
The final number in the Haslab campaign, when it came to an end, it was 14,737 backers. It should have been 14,736 backers. But at the 11th hour swank, I pulled out my credit card. I couldn't help myself. I was going to pass on this thing.
Yeah.
Because display ability seems rather difficult.
See, I don't see that. I don't see that because did you see the video that they did on Hasbro Pulse where you could sort of have an elongated display versus sort of the clustered display?
Yeah, they showed how they broke up the modular construction of this playset and put it on several different shelves. And at that point, I thought that was some of the most effective social media advertising I've ever seen from Hasbro, because it did a lot to sell this particular playset to me. So I dove in. I have to admit, I've encountered some buyer's remorse.
Really?
Since that, yes. And I'm not going to it's not going to be in our hands until October 2025.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to live with buyer's remorse.
Well,
for another like 14 months.
What's the source of the remorse? What's the source? What's your remorse source?
The price point was ridiculous for a plastic playset like this. I think it was overpriced by about $200. And I think Haslab itself is something of a scam. Why are we crowdsourcing? Why are we crowdsourcing products coming from the Hasbro company? They rely on us to crowdsource something like this, and then they charge like $200 more than necessary.
I'm actually a fan of the concept, as long as they continue to put out stuff that people want to buy. This was a natural, but I still think that they have absolutely buried the one piece I think that would absolutely sell in a heartbeat, and that's the Death Star.
Yeah,
Where's
that would
the
be
Death
a big
Star?
one. And that's something that maybe they can target in the future, or like Echo Base on Hoth. That might be something worth pursuing.
I tell you, here's my remorse, Jim, is you funded the barge. You funded the Razor Crest.
I did.
I didn't with either one of those, and I've regretted it ever since on both counts. And this was the moment I said, that's never going to happen to me again. And then they went with the Rancor. I did back the Rancor. It didn't happen. And then they went with Reva's Saber, and I don't think anybody backed that. And then they finally came out with this, and I said, damn it, I'm not going to get the FOMO. I'm going to just do it right out of the gate, first day. And I did. I'm glad that I did, but really I did it for the figures. I think this is it. I do agree with you to an extent that this, when you look at it, it does seem like a little bit overpriced considering, gosh, they just announced this week that they're doing the interior of Moff Gideon's ship. So these, and that's going to be at retail. So, these sort of play set diorama things, they are able to put them out, and that's obviously a much smaller one, but they are able to put these out and get the interest of the retailers and stuff like that. But I think that the intricacy of the tooling for this, all the little bottles and the vials and all the things that are sort of in the cantina, not just the walls and all of that, but I think that's where a lot of the money is. And then, of course, a big chunk of the money is in the tooling of those action figures, because they really are, I think, some of the best that I've seen in a long time.
It would have been nice if they included some Cantina aliens that were never released before. Yes, the Tonica sisters apply. But the other ones have all been previously released. Greedo has seen multiple releases.
Yep.
Wooher's seen multiple releases. Neighbor Leeds.
Oh, do I think just one Wooher?
No, there were multiple ones because there were multi-packs and other
they
things.
released those yes, that's right. They did have that series where they released parts of the bar.
Yes.
And yeah, you've got all of those, I think.
I do.
You've been able to complete. Yeah, okay, so I'm starting to understand your remorse a little bit here, because you've had a bar, you've had a Cantina bar in your collection. I haven't.
Yeah.
I missed a lot of those.
Oh, I have the Cantina in my collection since 1979 with the original Star Wars.
Well,
release,
yeah, right.
Which is like my favorite.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a Hasbro video sort of breaking down the modular pieces and showing how you could display them in various ways. And I started perusing my collection space, earmarking spots for these pieces of the playset to land. The thing that is irresistible to me is the film accuracy. It just really appears to be probably the most realistic recreation of a actual physical Star Wars set in toy form. And I find that really hard to resist. You know, the Tonica sisters, obviously being something of a holy grail amongst Star Wars collectors because it's been forbidden for so many years, is something that appeals to me as a longtime collector myself. But I've suddenly become aware of fan-made Tonica sister action figures that would have filled the void just fine if I didn't drop that $450 on this playset. Think about that, folks. $450 this thing costs. And of course, I'm adding on shipping and tags.
I think we're going to get that Wolfman figure. I think they're going to go ahead and put him out at retail.
Well, they should. It's a sharp-looking figure, and he's one of those classic characters from the Cantina sequence. I have more than enough Cantina action figures to fill the actual environment itself, and that rather excites me a little bit. You know, they sold the Jabba throne room a few years ago, but they did so in connection to the Boba Fett show, the Book of Boba Fett. So it was actually Bib Fortuna's throne room.
Yeah, it was Fat Bib.
Fat Bib. And so most fans have removed Fat Bib in the throne, and they put Jabba in his alien court in there,
right,
to display.
Right.
I must be one of the only fools in Star Wars collecting community who still has the thing displayed with Fat Bib sitting there on the throne.
You went Mando on that. Excuse me, Book of Boba Fett. That's really interesting. Mine's still in the box. Yeah, mine's still in the box. No, it's a project. I'm taking my time with this because I did get that. And I'm so excited because, you know, they released the wall, the Jabba the Hutt dungeon or whatever the heck they called it. It was Jabba's palace with the Han Solo and Carbonite, you know, on display.
Yeah, right.
So you combine it with that, and you combine it with the Jabba the Hutt from 2012.
Yes.
That was released, which is the best Jabba. Now they're re-releasing it. They're updating it and re-releasing it. I've got that on pre-order. So because it's really expensive, going back and buying that 2012 Jabba release where you get the little pillows and the little articulated salacious and all of that, it's pretty pricey. I think I got mine at a Star Wars convention a few years ago, and I paid close to $100 for it because It was
Wow. My
the best
family found
ever.
it for me out in the wild. And I still have a photo of them from way back when in the aisle of like a Walmart.
No,
or
you know what,
something.
dude? I think it was a Kmart exclusive. I feel like it might have been a Kmart because it was. I feel like it was an exclusive, and
Kmart.
yeah, it was hard to find.
It was a blue light special, but I do have a photo of my family.
That's so cool.
They scored it in the
moment.
wild, and they sent me a photo of them. And I just remember my son Dylan was like standing on the shopping cart triumphantly. It was a whole thing. I got to dig up that old photo.
Like, do you need this, Dad? Did they know you were looking for it?
Oh,
Or
they
was
knew
it
I
do you
needed it.
need this? Oh, they knew you needed it. Okay, so they were.
I'd given them
happy about
marching
that.
orders. And I said, you guys better keep your eyes open for this kind of thing. But here we are in the year 2024, and we're getting a film accurate cantina for the action figures. And I'm looking forward to it. The more I talk about it, the less I feel that buyer's remorse. Because I think to myself on the other side of the coin, if we were having this conversation and I didn't back the cantina, I would be feeling like the heavy weight of pure FOMO right now.
Yeah.
And as a Star Wars collector who's been there since the very first Star Wars items, the very first Star Wars merchandise was available for sale back in 1977, and someone who gobbled that stuff up over the years with extreme excitement, I can't experience FOMO in this situation. It's almost like I have to. It's my destiny to support the cantina. So congratulations to Hasbro for a successful Haslab.
Yeah.
Vintage collection as always. Vintage collection for life. 3 3/4 inch till the day I die. And Hasbro's given it to us original trilogy style with the Mos Eisley Cantina. Look forward to my unboxing video coming to you in October 2025. It'll be so exciting. It'll melt your face.
I hope Puppet Lando does the unboxing. Actually,
Puppet Lando.
Who
He was
better
with
give
us
it
when we did the barge. Puppet was with us, so should be interesting. Yeah, that deserves a sequel for sure.
All right. So, Jim, it wasn't that long ago that you laid on us a really incredible find, the WGN interview of Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, 1977, the original promo tour for that film, and it was everything being so fresh, and they were answering all these questions. They were even taking phone calls. It was incredible. So if you haven't heard that, you can check it out on our YouTube channel or just go to rebelforceradio.com and do a search for that. But I see here on the rundown, there's more. There's more audio.
Oh, this is breaking news, really, because this just came across my desk like an hour before this show began. One thing I've been really proud of in my radio career, I mean, that's my job, you know. We all have occupations, and for 30-something years, I've been working professionally in Chicago radio. And any opportunity I find to cross my two biggest passions, radio and Star Wars, I jump at that. I mean, really, the whole evolution of my podcasting career owes a lot to that very statement. And just recently here on the show, the unprecedented discovery of Mark, Harrison, and Carrie on a radio tour, a publicity tour in Chicago to promote the original Star Wars back in 1977. It's really interesting to go back in time and check that out. Well, luck has struck us again here. Lightning is struck again in the same place in the same year. And there is another new vintage Star Wars radio discovery I want to lay on you guys. This comes from another one of those legendary legacy Chicago radio stations, WLS, circa 1977, when the cast was touring the States to promote the original Star Wars. This time we have Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher. No Harrison Ford on this particular piece of audio I'm going to play you. But it's a really different, outside-the-box, crazy, weird, unique Star Wars bit from 1977 featuring both Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher. It's from the John Landecker Show on WLS circa 1977. John Landecker's current producer laid this piece of audio on me and said your audience would love this. Mark Hamill in studio, Carrie Fisher, she's present. You don't hear her much on this, but if you listen closely, you will. I think she was on the phone, actually. And it's a bit. It's a bit, a Star Wars bit called Radio Star Wars. So it's, let me see if I could put this in perspective for you listening. It's a battle between the two biggest stations in Chicago radio at the time, WLS radio, where this was recorded, and their rival, WGN radio. Those are the two at war in Radio Star Wars. So let's check it out. This is vintage audio. It hasn't been heard in forever. From the John Landecker Show, WLS Radio 1977, featuring Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Radio Star Wars.
There's a strange voice on the phone. The guy says he is a Darth Vader.
Hey, wait a minute. He's the villain from Star Wars. Stay away. He's evil.
Anyway, oh God, it's terrible.
Well, relax, Jack. What telephone line is he on?
Pick up line 2.
Think it's okay if I talk to him, Mark?
Well, I don't know. He's the most evil force in the universe, but he is definitely afraid of ducks. John, be careful, okay?
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
This is Darth Vader. Is this John Landecker at WLS?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Are you there with Luke Skywalker?
Oh, yeah, I'm here, Darth.
I have kidnapped Bob Sirach and the Princess Leia.
Help, John, help!
Luke, save us!
Listen to my demands. I have stolen the WGN traffic helicopter. I have Bob and the princess inside. We are flying over the Dan Ryan. If I am not given full control of WLS in 20 minutes, Sirach and the princess will be dropped into the rush hour traffic below me. They will die.
Great googly moogly, what to do?
Oh, John, listen, I think my experience as Luke Skywalker could really be of some help here.
Well, how's that?
Well, I've got the Millennium Falcon, the starship from the movie. It's parked outside the station. I've got my droid R2-D2. I mean, I'd be willing to give it a shot.
You don't mean...
That's right, John. Rescue!
Rescue is futile. I am too powerful. If I am not given control of WLS, Sirach and the princess die.
If I only had some ducks.
John, don't do it.
Oh, Luke, be careful!
Gosh, Luke, you know, the starship here, it's bigger than it looked in the movie.
Well, just sit down, strap yourself in, John, while I get R2-D2 to program our flight. Now, R2, set a course for the WGN traffic helicopter over the Dan Ryan, and take off!
I'm going to kill Sirach and the princess in 30 seconds.
Luke, shoot him down!
Oh, I can't, John. My ray guns are too powerful. They're designed for other galaxies. If I fire, all of Chicago will be destroyed.
Wait, didn't you say that Darth Vader had a deathly fear of ducks?
Yeah?
Well, I think I've got the answer. We have an open radio channel to the copter, right?
Right, John.
Well, I got a copy of the song Disco Duck on my cassette here.
And you want to blast the helicopter with the song?
Right.
Oh, boy. Give the song to R2-D2. He'll program the song into the ship's communication systems, and we'll blast the copter with it.
Okay. R2-D2, take it. Fire!
Come in, copter! Come in, copter!
John, can you hear me? Disco Duck worked. Darth Vader's body exploded. I've got control. We're all right.
Oh, Luke, oh, John, thank you.
Radio Star Wars, featuring the voices of John Landecker as himself and Darth Vader, Jack Swanson as himself, Bob Surratt as himself, R2-D2 as himself. Plus our special thanks to Carrie Fisher as the voice of Princess Leia and Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker. And from all of us to all of you,
May the Force be with you.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot to unpack.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is Mark always puts the ham in Hamill. Always.
Very appropriate in this situation, I think. I just have to say that I understand a lot of the references that are being made throughout that thing, and the sum total really is absolutely nonsensical to me. So I could only imagine how someone
It was the
listening to
70s, man. Isn't this one of those where you listen to something and you go, hey, it was the 70s?
Well, that's very much the case in this situation. But let's talk about, some of the great things. Mark, he delivered throughout.
Yeah.
Carrie was
always
really
enthusiastic, Mark.
Always, yeah.
No matter what he's doing, yeah.
Yeah, ready to embrace the cheesiness of any situation. That's Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
And Carrie can be heard a few times, but it did sound like she was on the phone. And I thought that was kind of puzzling. The most puzzling thing of all of this is why? Why in the world did they use the Jawa sound as R2? They kept saying R2 is a Jawa. R2, and it's a Jawa. It's not R2.
R2-D2 as himself.
All that stuff aside, I'm nitpicking it as both a radio professional and a hardcore Star Wars fan. What I find fascinating is that this is, again, capturing a moment in time. Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher contributing to a wacky radio bit. And that was par for the course back in the day when these celebrities would go out to promote their films. You don't get that really so much anymore, primarily for the fact that radio isn't the medium that Hollywood taps into to promote their films at all anymore. They look at things like Comic-Con and YouTube and websites. They don't look at radio in this way anymore. So this kind of, displays the power of radio as it was back in the 70s.
Sure.
Where you can get Hollywood stars like Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher to contribute to wacky bits like this that are really nonsensical at the end of the day, and do so with a lot of energy and, entertainment value.
Did they call it Radio Wars at any point? Because I think that's a natural title for this.
They call it Radio Star Wars.
Radio Star Wars. Yeah. Okay. All right.
And from what I can gather, I guess the WGN radio station was attacking the WLS radio station with their traffic copter, and Darth Vader somehow took control of that traffic copter.
Yeah.
But something made his body explode. And that was Rick D's Disco Duck song from 1970, whatever. 1977, probably. Rick Dees was a very popular LA disc jockey, and he created this wacky novelty song, Disco Duck, to feed off of the disco craze of the late 70s. It was kind of a derided song, or, to say the least. And in that bit, you hear Mark as Luke saying that Darth Vader has a strong fear of ducks.
Well, and a little bit of trivia. Jimmy Mack knows this, of course, but you may not know that there is a reference to a duck in the original Star Wars novel written by George Lucas, but of course it was ghostwritten by Alan Dean Foster. So Obi-Wan Kenobi makes a reference to a duck.
Yeah, he says something like, if it's a duck, it's a duck. Right. Like that's his big Jedi Force teaching to Luke, we're light years away.
He walks like a duck and talks like a duck.
Do or do not. There is no try. And what was it that Obi-Wan used to say? Oh, if it looks like a duck, it's a duck. Duck it is. If duck it looks like duck it is. But I mean, you know what? I only play that. I mean, just because it's just such a time capsule, a moment in history, a bit of Star Wars promotional history that you may not have ever been aware of. I know you weren't ever aware of it until we played it here on Rebel Force Radio. So I'm really just happy whenever my two worlds collide, my radio world and my Star Wars world collide, and we're able to provide these little glimpses into the past, courtesy of reel-to-reel tape.
All right. Well, let's do something we haven't done in a long time, and that is take on something that is just quite outrageous, quite unthinkable.
It's unthinkable.
Every once in a while, a story comes across our desk here at Rebel Force Radio that it just doesn't fit anywhere else. And it's just, it's outrageous. It's unthinkable, as the great Seal Bibble once said.
The great Seal Bibble. Nobody said that since his mom. But let's tune in to some Australian television, why don't we? Queensland, Channel 9 News. And here we learn about a certain Star Wars character taking center stage in a nasty breakup.
A Cairns mother has been forced to block dozens of calls after her ex-partner allegedly took her phone number and plastered it on poles here around the CBD, telling people to call up and impersonate Chewbacca for a chance to win $100.
This would be the most childish breakup I've ever had. All he had to do was be mature and go, I don't love you anymore, I want to move on.
The calls have been waking her and her 3 young children up at odd hours in the evening, and they're yet to stop.
I won $500.
Well, I'm getting phone calls at really strange hours of the night, about 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock.
Forced to call back the wannabe Wookiees and tear down the posters.
It just seems to have gotten out of hand. Big joke now.
The 29-year-old is determined to have the last laugh.
If there's anyone out there that can do the real Chewbacca sound, I might marry ya.
It could be a Wookiee error for her former partner. She's told 9 News the matter has been reported to police.
I gotta tell you, that's a pretty good prank right there.
Yeah.
So you were talking about classic radio bits and things like that. That right there could have been a classic radio prank. to give out someone's phone number and make it part of a Chewbacca impersonation contest.
Well, he breaks up with her, and then he plasters these 8x10 printouts all over town, saying impersonate Chewbacca and win $100. He's got her phone number right there.
Yeah.
So they're calling it all hours of the night, and she seems like she's taking it in stride. And she said, hey, if somebody can really do a good Chewbacca impersonation, I might marry the guy. So, I mean, there could be some instant love for Chewbacca fans in Australia, should you be looking for it. But here at Rebel Force Radio, we discourage that kind of
course,
Chewbacca nonsense when it comes to breaking up with a former loved one. Scorned lovers will act out, But here at Rebel Force Radio, we don't recommend that. If you're going to break up with your girl, demand an Ewok impersonation from strangers. And that's, but that's so funny. It's between 1 and 4 a.m. is when the calls really start spilling in. I like the guy who goes, I want my $100.
Hello, this is Warwick Davis, and you're listening to Rebel Force Radio, your source for the Force.
I don't know about you, but I am thirsty. I'm ready to go into the cantina. We got a great guest this week. He's the director of Wonderland, amongst other films. He's directed multiple Academy and Golden Globe winners and nominees, actors like Jake Gyllenhaal, Anna Paquin, Taron Egerton, and worked with heavyweights in the business like Ridley Scott, Jerry Bruckheimer, Mike DeLuca, Don Langley, Michael Mann. The list goes on and on. It is James Cox joining us in the cantina to tell us about his latest effort. He's now a novelist. He's got a great new book coming out, and he's also a huge Star Wars fan. So let's talk to James Cox.
Where are you going, Master? For a drink.
Sorry about the mess.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
All right, James Cox, welcome to Rebel Force Radio in the cantina. So nice to have you with us.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to be here. It's an honor. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, of course. Well, any friend of Kyle Newman's is suspicious to us, so we definitely...
Yeah, I've known Kyle since NYU. I mean, it's going on. I'm not even going to say how long that's been.
Did you guys go to school together?
We did. We
Okay.
were in... So we were technically in the same class. I transferred in from Berkeley, and he was there for the full 4. So when I came in, you kind of come in a little bit a grade down-ish, but we were technically in the same class and finished in the same class.
All right, well, we got to ask you what's one embarrassing, funny story you can tell us about Kyle in college.
There's just so many.
I kept trying to think of an embarrassing moment. I can just say that because of our age in our class at NYU, it was, you were either a Jedi Knight or you weren't. Right.
Really?
And so,
okay. And that you were either a fan, you were either a big Star Wars fan or you weren't, because it's...
No, I think he's saying either you had a talent for filmmaking or you didn't. And
no.
it was
The first one. The first one.
Oh, wow.
Basically,
Okay.
either
right.
you were raised on the Force and, you went to the Church of Yoda, or however you want to say it.
Sure.
Or you didn't, right? And you were of a different ilk, whether that be Scorsese or whoever. Greenaway was, I remember, that was kind of popular. And then, of course, Pulp Fiction was enormous at the time. So anyways, I was, I always called it, I was like a closet Jedi Knight. So I could quote scripture, passage and verse, so to speak, of these aren't the droids you're looking for, whatever it may be. Binary language of moisture evaporated. So, but you didn't know that at first blush. And
Why'd
so
you keep
Kyle,
that quiet, though, James? Why weren't you wearing it on your sleeve like I think you were just about to say that Kyle did, right?
Well, it was like I said, you've got Pulp Fiction, Jersey Films, Miramax, Harmony Korine. I can't, like, the day before or the week before I flew out to New York, and that was a big step for me to just move to New York. Was I saw Kids, and I think like 72 hours later, Harold was like skateboarding past me. So there was like a part of me when I stood up at the first day of class, you had to introduce yourself and your favorite movie. And so I was like, I love two movies, Raging Bull and Star Wars. And I think Kyle was full blown Skywalker.
Oh, easily.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I was a cinematographer at the time, and I'd kind of come in a little ahead of the curve. So I was shooting, Kyle was in even though we were the same grade, they were in some advanced classes, but because of a couple of strange circumstances that had occurred, the word got out. I shot something early that just got some attention of like, dude, did you see what that looked like? And people just really appreciated it. And I kind of started shooting a lot of different people's stuff. And that was how Kyle and I met. And he had won this competition for Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
This little short film competition. And that was anybody who'd done anything professional stood out in one way, shape, or form. And so that was really his claim to fame. And, the talent was there from the very beginning.
So even though you kind of hid your devotion to the scripture, as you call it, the Book of Yoda, as a Star Wars fan, where did it all start for you? I'm assuming as a kid.
Like I think we had it on beta. Like I was that kid with the beta machine, for one reason or another. And so like, not compatible with our system. So, but every Saturday morning, movies. I was a morning kid. So I was up early and my parents, just went Star Wars. And it was a number of movies that was on rotation, but Star Wars was certainly one of them. And I think at some point it was Star Wars Empire and Return of the Jedi. And it was just that church.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, to us, it was church in that era because I always believed Star Wars told a story without talking down to the youth. And it was a universal story, a universal message that everyone could grasp regardless of your age. And I think that's something that really fueled it in the early days when we were watching it on VHS and Betamax. We realized it was rich enough to keep returning to over and over and over again. And why? Because it didn't talk down to us.
Yeah. I think it transcends all language. Obviously, I'm sure the Joseph Campbell situation is where it's such. I don't think there is a better hero's tale told on screen more perfectly, if that's a way of saying
I would agree.
It.
I think that was what George set out to do. I always think about that scene in The Nightmare Before Christmas where Jack Skellington is trying to discover what's the alchemy, what's the makeup of Christmas, and he's got the microscope and he's looking at all these things. That's essentially what George was doing when he was trying to create, the ultimate hero's journey, the ultimate story of going off and becoming a grown-up and leaving all those things behind. I think it was totally by design.
There's nothing for me here now.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. It's like I want to learn the way of the Force and be a Jedi like my father. Like how archetypical is that? You just are like, doesn't matter what language you're speaking, you're like, run, Luke, run. It just connects. And like you said, he did it on purpose, and he went to the dude. Joe Campbell, Hero with 1,000 Faces, and it just lines up just incredibly. And even structurally, whether you do the Frank Daniels system or you do Sid Field or Blake Snyder, whatever it is, it's just math. It's like sharp as a razor. So whenever I'm talking structure with someone, I'm always just like, so, it's like pinch 2 is, the trash compactor or whatever. And just like, it's like, oh, it's just a shorthand. And if you don't know that movie,
oh, interesting.
I don't know. Like it just seems like
it's a model, in other words, and you can call out scenes, and that's indicative and transfers to, whatever
every
project
single
you're working
structural paradigm in screenplay structure. It's utterly, the only thing about it is because the act 1 is enormous because of the entire getting the droids through the Jawas and out. So I think the break at Mos Eisley, it may come late, right? I don't think it necessarily comes on at 28 minutes in, but it might. I haven't seen it recently, or I haven't, measured the time recently, but anyways, and it's funny because we only have so much time, and it's like those movies are the most, and I'm not the only one that said it. Obviously, you guys have a podcast. It's the most influential films in my life, 100%. That like the idea of like if someone asked me what Buddha, Jesus Christ, God is, I'd be like, it's an energy force that binds us and penetrates us and holds us together.
Yeah.
It just transcends the story itself and becomes a way of life. As a matter of fact, Joseph Campbell himself even referred to George Lucas as his prized pupil. He thought George really hit the nail on the head and was very successful. I believe he said that in his interviews with Bill Moyers.
Right, The Power of Myth, right?
Right. Do you recall the moment when you got hit by the bolt of lightning and said, wow, Star Wars is something that I would like to do for my career. I want to get into filmmaking. Star Wars is that kind of influence on me. Do you recall when like that actually happened?
I was making movies when I was 10. Mm-hmm. So it was like I wasn't I was making movies before I even had the cognition to like know who I was. Like I was just the first time my parents came, I didn't have a camcorder until I bought one with my paper route money when I was like 16 or 15, whatever it was. But my friends,
route. That's so classic Americana.
I mean, it's full blown. I had I remember I kept inheriting other people's routes so that I could I had like multiple drops, the effing baskets on the back. It was just crazy. But yeah, so there was a moment, I think it was when Chris Columbus got some award for something and he thanked his parents for sending him to NYU. And I went, what's that? And I think I was like 15 or 16, maybe 14. So I was like, had already been making movies, like really rudimentary stuff. And I think there was a big moment for me was when I realized that Empire was the best one.
Ooh. And do you recall how that happened? Why that happened? Was there a moment in the film where you just suddenly said, oh my God, they nailed it. This is the best.
It was actually I think I had gone off to Berkeley and I'd started to really get into kind of the cinema of the 60s and the counterculture and stuff like that. Like I kind of started with, and Apocalypse Now is later than that, but from Easy Rider to Apocalypse Now and that level of like Bonnie and Clyde and kind of the subversive cinema of that era. And so that was really what I was keyed into. I got to Berkeley and the French New Wave was something that really took off for me. And so I kind of left the popcorn movies of my youth and I went off on this journey that went into kind of, like I said, kind of subversive and anti-narrative and that sort of thing. And I remember I was at NYU and a friend of mine was like, yeah, well, Empire is the best. And I was like, yeah, I guess. Why do you say that? And he was like, because they're effed at the beginning and they're effed at the end.
This is true.
And I was like, and that stuck with me. And then I think, they're the best line ever. One of them, right? I love you. I know.
Oh yeah.
Right. And you're just like, so good. Right. So good. It's like so Han.
Yeah.
You know? And all of that stuff just seeped into me. And I think that was kind of when I started to recognize where I was old enough to be like, wow, that entire movie's in Act 2. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like he
right.
like, how balls out is that to make a movie that they're effed at the beginning and they're effed at the end. And you're like, I have no doubt you're coming for number 3. There is zero doubt in my mind that I have you so hooked that I can just hit you over the head with a abominable snowman and then freeze you in carbonite and cut your hand off and blow, you're just like, dude, what? And then it's like, the two best reversals, right? She's my sister and my daughter. And I am your father. Right?
Well,
those are the two just like, go ahead.
Well, in that era too, where a lot of sequels were carbon copy, cookie cutter versions of the original film. Right. And then you have Empire Strikes Back, which is doing a number of things. It's maturing with its audience. If you look at the 8-year-olds of 1977, by the time you get to 1980, they're 11, 12 years old now. I mean, it's maturing with its audience. And also, it's taking bold moves to step away from the template that George Lucas created for the original film. It was truly something unique on its own and original. And I don't think audiences were prepared for sequels of that type of quality that really stepped away from the original and planted its own flag.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, maybe outside of like Godfather 2 or something, but
yeah,
that was a rare example. That was rare.
It's no accident, right?
Yeah.
That they're so close, in terms of George and Francis. And so it's I can't imagine it being if you're George Lucas and you've just tattooed Mr. Spaulding where you're like it didn't even hit the bull, it's like out of the park. And they're like, so what are you going to do with the second one? Who are you going to call? You're going to call the guy who followed up Godfather with the best, like how do you beat the Godfather? And you're like, not that they have speed dials back then, but they're best friends.
I do want to ask about sort of that moment when you sort of cross the threshold a la Luke Skywalker, and all of a sudden now you're out of college, you're working in the industry, but yet you're still a fan. Did you ever have any big fan moments, or what was your first big Star Wars fan moment, but you had to kind of like be discreet because, now you got to act like you've been there before, you're a pro.
True.
Well, okay, I got a good one for you guys. So Leia was in my movie, one of my movies.
Well, that's true, in Wonderland, yeah.
It's like it kills me that, and we had a blast. She and I just really, and I had the pleasure of working with her daughter on Billionaire Boys Club, Billy, and but Carrie and I had a really fun time. We just kind of got each other for one reason or another, and it was just a treat. It was kind of a dream come true to be and so like she plays this quote unquote holy roller.
Carrie Fisher is very present in the first opening minutes of Wonderland. And she's like this good Samaritan that picks up a girl on the side of the road who's obviously been abused, and she takes her in. And then all of a sudden, the guy who's been abusing her, John Holmes, shows up at Carrie Fisher's house and takes the girl. And that's about that. But did you ever find yourself?
So Leia's line, so Carrie's line was, "You want to have a personal relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ." So we get it a couple times. We have it in the bag, whatever. And I go over and I whisper in her ear, and I'm like, "You got to just do this one thing for me, like on this take." And so 5 goes up or 3 or whatever it is. She goes, "Dawn, would you like to have a personal relationship with the Lord Obi-Wan Kenobi?
No. And you have that. Do you still have that outtake?
Crew just explodes in laughter.
Yeah.
Because it came out of nowhere. And you see when I'm whispering her in the ear, I don't even think I said cut. And you see her go, no. Oh, all right. So she was.
Well, let me. You shot this what? 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
So and how did Carrie land the role on your film? Was it the role written for her, or was it just luck in
No,
cast?
it was like it just was a strange, like, kind of casting situation where someone threw like, "What about Carrie Fisher for that opening role?" And I was like, you know what I mean? Of course. So it just it just kind of came together, and it was like I said, it was a real treat.
I'll bet. And then Kyle obviously got to work with Carrie in Fanboys, where she appears in the hospital in that scene. And so both you guys kind of check that one off your bucket list, which was an awesome experience for you both to be in the presence of Alderaan royalty that way. And what a cool experience. Did you find yourself turning into the fanboy yourself? And did you get an opportunity to ask Carrie for any stories from the set or anything like that? The set of Star Wars, that is.
Yeah, no, I didn't go like crazy geek out or anything like that.
Does the Carrie Fisher Obi-Wan Kenobi outtake exist where you influenced her to shift the line around just for laughs?
It has to, it's somewhere. I would assume it's somewhere on the original. It's somewhere on the original negative, because we shot film and we shot a lot of it. And you'd have to ask Lionsgate. I don't know where it
didn't make any DVD or Blu-ray special features, huh?
It didn't, and it's a shame, right? Like that's just like
great
when
outtake.
I think about it, I'm like,
could have been a post-credits outtake.
Yeah,
make that audience sit there and wait. But James, so obviously Star Wars being a huge influence in your job as a filmmaker and a director, but you're now an author, and you have a brand new book out. Just came out this week, as a matter of fact. And there it is, Grand Theft A.I. And so tell us how, Star Wars influenced, because George is one of the world's, one of the greatest world builders, and how that might have influenced the way you approached this, because I'm guessing that this is probably not a one and done. I'm thinking that if this does well for you, that there might be future installments in this, and you might kind of have your own, that we might be looking at the James Cox verse here.
Yeah, he likes the sound of that.
I'm laughing, but I had a pretty fortunate break in this business. I was the kid coming out of film school with a red hot short that just exploded. And it won at Sundance, a Student Academy Award, sold to HBO, and then it hit LA, and my first three meetings were crazy. It was like Ridley Scott, Jerry Bruckheimer, and Mike DeLuca. And all three of them got in business with me on the first day, and I was just off to the races. And the whole thing kind of, the apex of that run really was Wonderland, and taking it to Toronto Film Festival, taking it up to the winery to screen for Francis Coppola. And just
you went up to Napa to hang with Francis?
Yeah, Val took us up there, and Francis, the thing unspooled and the light comes on, and he's like, "James, the opener of your movie," and the fingers out of like Hearts of Darkness. I'm just like, oh my, is this happening? And this is like, the legends came. I don't, something about that movie, because it had been tried to get made a lot of times, and we really put the bat on the ball. And it was like Michael Mann, Robert Towne, Bob Zemeckis, Robert Evans, huge guys weighed in. Yeah, we were actually the last movie to screen before the famous screening room burned down.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Robert Evans, one of the all-time great Hollywood producers. Isn't that right, Pally? You know, he just had the voice, he had the charisma, and he had the influence.
James is blood on the walls. Ain't no blood on the heart.
That's right, pal.
So yeah, it was, and so, you know, that kind of rocket ship really like was a ride and a half. And I'll be honest, like soon thereafter, my demons got the better of me. I had no idea how fortunate I'd been. And, you know, I was someone that like, you know, I loved going out. I loved partying in New York because that's where I went to school and that's, you know, city never sleeps. But I just couldn't draw the line between work hard and play hard. I was just one big juggernaut of energy. And then my dad passed away and I just buckled. You know, the signs of self-destruction were already there, but like when he went in a lot of pain and he was my best friend. And I just was just consumed in like rage and sadness. And I definitely should have been in a therapist's office, you know, like grieving with professional help. But instead I just said, in like all caps,
screw the world. Yeah.
And so I'd already been making bad decisions. So I started making like really bad decisions, you know, offending super talented people, embarrassing myself in public arenas and, you know, showing up to critical professional moments unprepared, like blowing huge opportunity after huge opportunity. Cause like Wonderland set me up, you know?
Yeah.
And I just didn't give a damn. You know, I've good movies, great relationships. I burnt them all to the ground.
Who's the biggest celebrity you offended?
That's not necessarily something I think I'm quite ready.
Okay, that's fine. We'll save it for your autobiography.
There you go.
Because you're obviously a very, very skilled writer. You wrote a lot of a majority of your film projects, if I'm not mistaken, and you wrote this cool new book. Grand
Wow,
Theft
did you just
A.I.
catch me on the spot? Wow.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm letting you off the hook.
It's good ask. Good ask. No, anyway, so look, my life got really small and it took a long time for me to wake up. And around Thanksgiving 2013, I was in the Hyatt in San Francisco in Union Square and like some wind blew through me. All the hairs went up in my neck and I was done. You know, just done running, done numbing. You know, I got back to LA and I got to work facing up to who I'd become and finding the real me, you know, and not the dark dude from the city, but like the kid making movies in his backyard. Like, was that passion still there? And so when you ask where does Star Wars and where does the world building and that side, you know, I mentioned that like I had these two real influences being Star Wars and Raging Bull, you know, kind of streets of New York and that heartbeat of American independent counterculture cinema. And then, you know, the greatest, you know, of the modern era, like adventure world building situations. And even with Billionaire Boys Club, you know, like that came after I'd woken up, and yet the origins to that was still back in my darkest days and like my death wish fascination with condemned souls. And so when that was a very difficult picture. I struggled with the DNA of that picture of like, is this a cautionary tale that needs to be told? Or is this just like a too twisted nightmare of white privileged young men from Beverly Hills who commit horrible financial crimes until it spins all out of control and they commit horrible violent crimes, right? And there you have it. I mean, we had some sensational talent came together for this movie in terms of the acting that was going on. But by the time it was ready to take to the public, the world had changed. You know what I mean? And it just was not. It wasn't in the cards for that picture, so to speak. And when that thing cratered, you could bet I was in a therapist's office that week.
Oh, good for you, man. You know, self-improvement is something. self-improvement is something that we all have to kind of take account for, and I'm proud of you for doing that, my friend.
Like at that moment, I wanted to say this, but I'd been down that road. And so instead I just did the only thing I know how to do well, which is I started writing. And I wrote what I loved, like as a kid growing up, Star Wars, Alien, Aliens, Blade Runner, The Matrix, Snow Crash, Neuromancer, like world building sci-fi. It was just prose at first. Like I didn't know what it was or where it was going. I just knew it was like what was true in my heart, like these little short story bios set in the coming golden age of AI. And, the thing, I saw the sunrise like 7 nights in a row. I was like breaking keyboards. It just came out like in this explosion of passion. And eventually, it evolved. At first, it was going to be a screenplay. It was a screenplay that was going to be like my next movie, but I just kept writing and the thing kept growing. It was like a novella, and then it was a manuscript, and I sent it to my mentor, Shane Salerno, and Shane read it in a day. I mean,
well, that's a lot.
No one reads anything in a day.
Yeah, right.
And this is like at that point it was like 300-page book, and he just came back next day and was like, yo, a heist set in a Blade Runner Matrix world? We can do something with this. Yeah. He was blown away by this new direction that I'd taken, because who knew I had this like sci-fi itch that needed to be scratched.
Give us a short summary of what the book's all about.
You pick up in this book, and I'm just going to give away like kind of the opener, which is like an event that like you pick it up, and I'm going to say it wrong, but a epistolarian, it's kind of like through transcripts and found footage and whatnot of April 10th, 2043. And you are at the Masters tournament when I think we're on the 13th hole or 17th hole.
I'm really glad to know that we're still playing golf in 2043. So thank you for that.
You've got to. And this is now after augments have been banned, right? So it's a fully organic competition. And the synthetic caddy goes berserk, and you yank out of that, and next thing you know, you are, at drone copters, and you're at satellite level, because this is not an isolated event, and there are, bots going haywire all over the country, and you're yanking out a perspective, and then you're in Applebee's at table 6, and you are into the molecular code as you're like, the hostility ramping payload software hits, and boom. And then next thing you know, you're at MacDill Air Force Base, and they're deploying, and you've got like 9/11 like to orders of magnitude of the synthetic generation.
People begin noticing this on a golf course. That's where it all starts.
Oh, we open. Yeah, we're with ESPN. I think it's ESPN VHD, right? So everything's virtualized. So 2Ds are like finger paint.
Wow. Amazing. So we have influences from everything from the Matrix to Blade Runner to maybe a little Caddyshack mixed in there as well. This is a really cool looking book. It seems very compelling and complex. Grand Theft A.I. Is there any desire for you to make this into a screenplay and potentially present it to us as a film someday?
I think Publishers Weekly said that the mayhem reaches cinematic levels. Nice. It's like it's really been kind of interesting to like, I was a cinematographer who became a director because he had to, and then I was a director who became a screenwriter because I had to, and then I was a screenwriter who accidentally became a novelist, and then there was a point where I had to write. They didn't just Blackstone bought 2 books, so that in addition to this book that I've written, I actually have written book 2 and finished, or quote unquote, finished that manuscript the week my daughter was born. which I just kind of buried the lead.
Congratulations,
that's
by the way.
headline.
Yeah.
Thank
Congrats,
you.
Dad.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
have a 13-month-old, and she's
Good for you. My
she's a
God. That's
dream.
awesome. The book is Grand Theft AI by James Cox. It's so fresh. It just came out very recently. You can pick it up everywhere. Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes & Noble, you name it. They got it. And James,
that page you're looking at is from my website, jamescoxbooks.com, where you can find all things James Cox, including the buy buttons for this book from every place that they've just described, including a few others. There's a synopsis. There's also my socials if you want to, reach out to me in any way, shape, or form. There's also the access to a direct email on another page. So that is the central nervous system, the hub of the book and of me. And it's just been, I'm really grateful for you guys having me on the show today.
Perfect. And you got a book launch event coming up in Hollywood pretty soon. Best
Tuesday,
of luck.
July 30th at the Village Well in Culver City. Come on down for a reading and a signing.
You'll be at Book Soup as well. So keep track of everything with James Cox. Go to jamescoxbooks.com. Now, James, we're not going to let you off the hook quite so fast. We have some very, very specific Star Wars questions to ask you. This is a Star Wars podcast, and we want to take your pulse the only way we know how, and that's through this brilliant list of questions we have called the Yoda Questionnaire. And we call it the Yoda Questionnaire because these questions were actually composed by Yoda himself. He faxed them to us from Dagobah. You think Dagobah is, obviously it's not technologically advanced, but they do have fax machines. So, dark side caves and fax machines. As a matter of fact, I think Yoda's fax machine actually is plugged in the dark side cave itself. So he sent us these questions. We're going to present them to you. They may seem very simple on the surface, but sometimes they reveal the most complex answers from a Star Wars fan. There is no right or wrong response to these questions, but keep in mind, your responses may be cheered and they may be chastised. So you have to expect the unexpected when it comes to the Yoda Questionnaire. Jason, do you have the questions?
I do have the questionnaire. We got to give it the appropriate intro, though.
The Yoda Questionnaire.
Yes, thank you, Richard Cheese, the great Richard Cheese, with our Yoda Questionnaire intro. I am going to just slightly correct Jimmy Mack because he said that there are no wrong answers, but as I like to say, there are answers that are more right than others.
Oh, there it is. That's the tagline to the Yoda Questionnaire.
So, James, we're going to start off kind of easy here, but maybe deceptively so.
Oh, is this trivia?
No. That's Bush League stuff here. Trivia.
Oh, God,
anyone can have an encyclopedic knowledge.
Here we go.
But this is going to test you. So we're going to start off here with deceptively simple question of who or what. We wish to be inclusive here. Who or what is your favorite Star Wars character, James Cox?
Han
Solo.
Didn't even skip
Han,
a beat.
no doubt.
Yeah.
Han.
Yeah. Han,
and
no
I,
hesitation.
I even love with caveat Solo.
Why with caveat?
Because you choke the Castle Run, you choke the whole fucking show.
So they choked the Kessel Run? Is that your opinion?
I don't know. I mean, I just was like, there was a point where there was like a galaxy space. I mean, now I'm really getting in trouble. But there was this enormous space octopus squid or something like that.
Yeah.
And that thing is beastly. Like that thing is like when he sees the Falcon for the first time.
Yeah, that's
in swells that score. I get choked up thinking about it right now. And I think because of the parsecs thing, there was a whole issue of like, how do we make the Castle Run work? You know, I think there was something about that. And then there was some bad guy that was like, I was like, wait a minute. What is that, an interdimensional space school? I was like, what? And then you went from didn't you have like a shot that was like 6 planets away? I don't know. Like it was the perspective.
I don't know, James. The movie is so dark. I can't actually see what's happening in it.
Oh, I've gone back and watched that thing and been just, So long and short, Han Solo, no doubt. So by those 3 movies in a row that he makes, and my father would get compared, they'd be like, on a good day, they'd be like, he looks like Harrison Ford.
Wow. Not a bad thing not a bad quality.
Order. Am I right in that it goes Empire, Raiders, Blade Runner, back to back to back?
Yes, you're absolutely right.
But think of that run.
Wow. Amazing.
Right? Han to Indy to Decker.
Yeah, just totally iconic.
Right. And you go from Lucas to Spielberg to Ridley and their best work.
And Harrison's career also included things like playing Richard Kimball in The Fugitive. I mean, really just big iconic roles. He just kept knocking it out of the park left and right.
He's fantastic in that TV show I can't remember the name of it, but it's really
isn't it about like therapy and things like that?
Shrinking.
Shrinking. That's it.
Shrinking. Yeah. I think there's a second season.
He's awesome.
Supposed to show up. It's very interesting to watch him sort of evolve into those roles, a role like that. Yeah.
And now he's going to be in the next Captain America film too. So
I would lose my mind in terms of geeking out. I would just be like, okay, like I don't have it with me. You know what I mean? Over my dead body.
Yeah. And what did you think of Harrison's performance in The Force Awakens?
That's the one where he dies, right?
Yes, it is.
I liked it.
Yeah, most people did.
Of the new ones, that's the one I liked.
It's
no arguments here.
Feel the same way. All right, more questions from the Yoda Questionnaire.
All right. Well, we're going to venture off onto the into the dark side here with this next question, James. Who or what is your least favorite Star Wars character? Least favorite.
I mean, everyone's going to say Jar Jar.
Jar Jar is a popular answer, but not the only answer.
Probably, I would say that the digitally replaced Jabba.
Oh,
like the one that in the scene that the original one they shot in the hangar.
Yeah, it's quite terrible.
Docking Bay number 5, right? Like when they when they replaced with the human with the digital worm. That's my worst. That's my
good
least.
call.
And you're like, wait a minute. I'm sorry. Wasn't this guy the size of like 3 living rooms? Like when did he turn out to be 6'2"?
Yeah.
Well, he's younger.
I just,
That's always the excuse when they show them in their, in a prequel. Oh, well, they're younger. That's why they look different. Yeah.
What? Yeah, I just.
Yeah, I'm with you on that original CG Jabba, and honestly, truth be told, they still haven't gotten it right. Despite all of the money and all of the technology, nothing beats that big blob of latex with the 2.5 guys inside of it.
One of my favorite ones.
Where he's like he eats the friggin' frog. Don't him hurt like leaves the slime on 3PO. He's so awesome.
He's great. Great. All right. James Cox, what Star Wars moment, and there have been a lot of them, what Star Wars moment always makes you smile? No matter how many times you see it, it still brings a smile to your face.
I know. No, I would have to say there's so many moments. Most of them are in Empire. Outmaneuver him. Right? Like that little line that he had, and because the score, Like, you talk about, like, it's almost, like you're thinking there's a mining car leaping, in a tunnel in the second Indy. It's like there's so much. It's such an incredible piece that when the cheeseburger does the whole pancake rotation, whoo, 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 whoo. So, and that little line where he's like, we'll get closer to one of these. Closer? So, like, I mean, how many of him does he has so many in that movie that he just, where they just were like, God, I'm trying to remember, but he's like, he's scoundrel.
Yeah.
Who likes scoundrels?
James, you always refer to the Millennium Falcon as the cheeseburger.
No, I mean, I guess just with you guys are like, you know what I mean? Like, because it's the way that thing flies is just, there's a number of things that were just done so, like, divinely inspired.
It is a cheeseburger with an olive.
And you've seen the concept. The concept was a needle.
The legend is George Lucas had it. He was out to lunch with the designers from ILM, and he took a cheeseburger and then took an olive on a toothpick and put it on the side and said, "This is the cockpit. Make a ship out of this."
Yeah,
and they said, "Out of the cheeseburger."
I think it's there's the amount of, like, raw creativity, unbridled. Just such a sweet spot of creation, where you've got those guys. I get choked up thinking about it. When I think of, like, when Ridley is en route to the, he stops by at the slaughterhouses in Chinatown to pick up the pieces of props so that, the alien looks right. You have, like, it's not easy to direct a movie, right? It's really like, there's just a lot of noise. There's a lot of stuff that's like where are the Teamsters going to park the honey wagons? You're like, let me tell you something. That is effing irrelevant to, like, whether how you're going to design the Millennium Falcon, and you're going to get that right in a way where it's like, I'm going to cry when you introduce that spaceship 40 years later in Solo. That's how valuable that cheeseburger was. Right? Like, no one's ever created a spaceship as cool as that. And there are a lot of effing spaceships out there.
That's right. It is. All right, more from the Yoda Questionnaire.
All right.
Okay. This is awesome. This is so cool.
This one is, what Star Wars moment always makes you sad? Doesn't have to be full waterworks here, but just always chokes you up a little bit.
I like that James is giving this some deep concentration right now.
Yeah, he got that Han Solo right away. No hesitation there. Even CG sad? Jabba came to him pretty fast.
It's so ingrained into me. I think, whenever the franchise falls short these days.
Oh, so like last week.
Oh, stop it.
It leads and certainly whenever one of them is over, whenever one of the good ones ends and it's done. And you just want it to keep going. I remember as a kid, I always was upset when Empire was over with because it was unresolved. And that's why it bothered me so much. I hated Empire Strikes Back. I loved so much of it, but then when it was over and I just had to go watch Return of the Jedi so they would all be friends again.
You felt unfulfilled? Did you feel unfulfilled at the conclusion of Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, as a kid, I was like, of course, it's like it's built that way. It's unresolved. It's this ultimate cliffhanger where Han's in a frozen, they've got everything's messed up.
Yes.
You know, like all that it works, and it's like even the hand isn't even really working. It's going to take. It's all just, and he is. If you don't, you know, has blown his training. Like he's not going to be a Jedi. We don't realize that he's come back onto the path until you get to like, you know, when he's pulling out the green thing in the palace. So everything's all messed up. So that was probably, you know, and then the other thing, like, I think I have to say what I think works in the world and when it doesn't work. So I don't know if you've got a question coming, but I do have something to say that has to do with that. So if you do have a question coming that I can tee off on when the world works and when the world doesn't, in regards to Jedis, then I can answer it down the road.
Hey, go for it. Go for it right now. Just go for it.
I think the franchise, I think that the brand, the franchise, the world, whatever, the galaxy far, far away, even when you say it, far, far away, the memories of the Jedis are far, far away. So when the world works is when there's one Jedi or zero Jedis or they're long lost and they've all been hunted down and they're dead. When there's 120 of them in an arena with all of them got lightsabers, it's not the same world as the original.
Yeah.
And Empire and Andor and Rogue One and Jedi in those worlds and The Force Awakens, right? Mm-hmm. Like those are the ones where it's like, it's mythic. It's kind of like all of our own current ancient religions. Like we don't have burning bushes. Right? We don't have people walking on water. Right? We have ancient traditions that claim that occurred. And that's where you have to take the leap of faith, that the force is out there. I'm getting choked up.
No, I really appreciate what you're saying right now.
So when it's when it's manifest, when it's manifest in the universe, and it's in front of everyone's face, and you don't have to take that leap of faith, something's lost.
Measurable?
Yeah. Well, literally measurable with a blood test.
It's like a midichlorian or something. I mean, everyone says this, but it's like, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
It's like, that's not what this is. This is every single... kind of getting all choked up. I've got to like take a break or I'm going to actually like break down because it's like, it's so, I care
You're
about
amongst friends, James. You're
and like when Stellan Skarsgård drops that like kin, kindness, what if I sacrificed everything? You're like, domino mother effer. Like, that's how we do it downtown.
Yeah.
Like that is so good. They made that rain so hard. I was just like, yeah, exactly. Ain't no Jedis on this one. They're all dead. This is the Empire. You know, I'm going to start dropping F-bombs. That thing is so good.
Tears and F-bombs. That's what we're going to call this episode.
Oh, dude, that thing is so good. And they had a writer's room where it was just like, I mean, those dudes are the dudes.
Oh, they are the best.
Gilroyds and the Willimans, and there's just like...
cream of the crop.
You know, dude, bring the noise, bring the rain. You know what I mean? Like, it's full on, like... Which, by the way, I think I misquoted, but there was a bit of a Transformers reference in there. But anyways, like, those guys.
Our pal
like,
FJ DeSanto would love that. Yeah.
Those guys crushed that thing. That writer's room was just like it was, you would walk up to it and like in the threshold, it was blinding light.
Yes.
Like you open up the door and you're like, I'm not worthy.
It's a different level.
I'm pretty sure... I mean, this is the thing I wasn't going to say. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to cry, Roy. I'm not going to cry. But like, do you think like that, you know, I'm not going to say it. But that sacrifice monologue is like, whoops, I screwed up my computer. I wish I wrote that.
Yeah, I wish I wrote that moment. Yes.
Say what you are refraining from saying to us. You can't go that far and not go.
Hypothetically. I'm just saying, hypothetically, if you had a 5th season that was about a politician in Washington, D.C., right, who had broken all the rules and lost his moral compass, right? And he'd gone down this road and there's all this carnage around him, and he had to have a monologue in the final season of the show that built Netflix. And suddenly that character doesn't exist anymore in the final season. So, and next thing you know, like someone turns to you and you're like, hey, we need a monologue that's from the heart about what, you know, a revolutionary who's a revolutionary in his own mind, but in other people's mind, he's an amoral killer.
Mm-hmm.
You happen to have a monologue that's about, you know, the wages of sin.
Does anybody got a monologue around here? Are you talking about House of Cards?
Yeah, I might have something like that. Some, you know, I didn't say, I don't know what you're talking. House of what?
I said it, not you. But wow, wow,
like,
what a great
I want to give credit where credit is due. I think that, you know, Rogue One and Andor, like that thing that they did is so good.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
it is
And we've got more to look forward to.
And
We've
it
got
is
another
so
season.
hard to live up to those shoes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, like Jason said, we have a season 2 coming up next year.
Oh,
and that's definitely something to look forward to. And what I have come to understand is while Andor didn't really move the needle a lot when it originally dropped as far as viewership, it has certainly made up for that in the downtime due to a lot of word of mouth. And I think when season 2 starts approaching, Andor's numbers are going to skyrocket up pretty high. I think there's a mature audience there that hasn't really been fully tapped into yet because of the fact that Andor can only be seen on Disney Plus. If you put a show like Andor on Netflix, it's the biggest show in the country for every episode that drops. I think they limit themselves by only having Andor featured on Disney Plus. Those are my thoughts and my thoughts alone.
Well, they did put Andor on network TV.
But I think a show like Andor supersedes where Disney Plus is right now as far as viewership goes. If you put in a show like Andor on Netflix, people will go crazy for it. And it would really do a lot to drive a lot of attention toward the Star Wars franchise. With Disney Plus, it's like you get the kids. That's like the kid zone. What drives the most eyeballs to Disney Plus? It's not Star Wars. It's movies like Encanto and Moana, the very popular Disney franchises, the animated stuff for kids. Adult fare based in the Star Wars universe in a show like Andor. By putting on Disney Plus, I think you're ultimately doing that level of storytelling a disservice. If you put it out there in front of more people will respond to the overall quality that Tony Gilroy has provided.
Funny because I wasn't even aware of the fact that it had disappointing numbers compared to, I don't know, Book of Boba Fett or whatever else it might have been.
Mandalorian is the crown jewel. And
right.
Book of Boba Fett shortly behind
it. And I think
it.
Mandalorian is awesome. I lumped that in the part of the franchises that's just awesome. But it's also not structured the same way. So Andor is like, you know, one's a little bit more episodic, you know, and then Andor is kind of it's just built. Those guys, I think they just had a very, you know, they knew exactly what the thing was from the beginning to the end, from the moment they did it. I mean, God, it's hilarious to hear that, like, that's the one that has disappointing numbers. It doesn't matter because give it time.
Spike's got the actual physical.
Yeah, I've been getting them all, but this was the one that I was probably the most excited about was getting Andor. You know, in a box set.
Blu-ray
yeah, this
Andor?
is the 4K. Yeah,
Yeah,
and some nice features on there.
It's funny because I don't know anybody who doesn't consider that. I've never even heard a knock on it. It's just like it is, it's just takes Star Wars, and I think a lot of it has to do with it's never been about the cogs and the humans to the Empire. I think that's what he said. He's like, I want to understand, where the machinery to this thing comes from. Like what is the nuts and bolts to the Empire? And that's like a whole, just an incredible, I guess also when you think about it, the Empire is always like functioning as the metaphor of the world we live in, and the Jedis and the rebellion is the world we wish we could have. And so that's the wish fulfillment to it. And then when you sit there and make the movie about the Empire, you're like, all right, well, this is really holding the mirror up to where we currently live. These are like, this is what it's like. This is what it's like.
Yeah.
Well, there's been cast and crew who have directly addressed exactly what you're saying. But we still have more questions from the Yoda Questionnaire.
Oh, good. And I'm going to customize this one to you, James. I've never done this before, but Yoda has said that we have permission only on special occasions because you are a writer, you are a director, right? You're a novelist, all right?
Right.
You have all of these skills. So what skill, this is just a precursor to the final question, what skill would you most like to lend to the Star Wars universe if given the opportunity?
Like, would I want to write it or would I want to direct it?
Yeah. Or would you rather write a novel?
Or be a cinematographer?
No, I'd want to direct them.
Or shoot it.
Would you rather shoot the thing?
No, I'd want to direct it 100%. It's not limited to Star Wars, right? So this doesn't limit to Star Wars. This encompasses all world building, right? And I know, I've made a number of movies, and I understand like what goes into making a movie and where the director gets hammered and why and when it happens and how things slip through your fingers and how you regret stuff on the screen long after you can't get it back anymore. But it's like, it doesn't matter what world you're building, right? But like, I got to say this the right way. If I am in a city on another planet, in a future, in a world, I am in a city. Do you want to know what defines a city? Density of people. So if I'm going to be on a thoroughfare, a plaza, a party, a bar, wherever, if I'm in a city, I feel like Blade Runner, right? I'm like jam-packed like a sardine. If you go to New York City at rush hour, on Fifth Avenue, like you are dodging bodies to get where you need to go if you're in a hurry because they're just constantly pushing you in the wrong way. And you want to know the hardest thing to direct is, crowds and extras. It's really difficult to get crowds moving in a direction that feels organic and a flow. It's really hard to get a party because these people are like, they're dressed by a different part of your crew. They have a different budget per outfit. They have to move to music that doesn't exist. And you don't even talk to them because they're talked to by your first AD, which means if your first AD can't move crowds and can't people move with talent, and that's a big brush. Like if you're painting and you're painting a city and you've got a DP that's lighting it and your costumer is putting the costume and your makeup and these are all your different brushes as a director. A really big brush is the person who's moving the people, the real ones. The ones that are like sitting in a different line for lunch. And like it's extras casting is a different animal than first team, right?
So the whole background of a scene can make or break the entire
scene. If you watch if any time a franchise falls short of the mark, whether it be in Star Wars or anything else, and you go, why aren't I buying this? Especially if they have the money. Yes. It's because I'm looking at some plaza or I'm looking at some place that's inauthentically populated. And so the tabletop looks perfect and the car looks perfect and this looks perfect, but there's something wrong with it. You want to know what you can't put your finger on? It's that the body's moving through it. They don't have enough of them, or they're not moving in the right rhythm, or they're dressed cheaply, or whatever the heck it was. I've
noticed this with the crown jewel of Star Wars streaming, The Mandalorian. Look at season 3. Look at the scenes on Navarro. It's exactly the things you were addressing. I saw it also on the Kenobi series, and the scenes
very much on Kenobi. I swear that whole series had like 11 people in the cast.
Right, and the Boba Fett series, the scenes on Mos Espa. All of that stuff really felt very small. It lacked the epic appeal. It lacked the natural appeal.
It costs money. It's hard to get them to move in the right place. And also, you don't learn it the easy way.
Wow.
Like, you learn it the hard way, where you're like, fuck.
Yeah, right. Well, that's incredible.
Doesn't look real.
No kidding. And I think all of us
and you're sitting there in the right now, understand usually you figure it out like in the mix. Because you're looking at it on a small screen and you're looking at it in like with the dailies or whatever and all this different stuff, and then you finally kind of get into a place where you're finished and you're doing the final mix on the sound and you're like,
yes. Amazing insight. Jason has a follow-up question.
All right, based on your answer, I'm going to say, if there was another Star Wars movie to be made, James, and we know there will be many made, but this is a special one. You are the director. George Lucas himself is overseeing you as the executive producer. What would you like to hear George Lucas say to you when the lights come on in his special screening room after you just show him your final cut?
The background extras look natural. Maybe that's what he would say. The background extras looked, they knew what they were doing. Take your time, James.
Can't you just see it? Lights come up.
Yeah.
There's James. There's George. James looks over at George.
You got the Falcon and moving away I never thought was possible.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That's a nice one. Yeah, you got that cheeseburger to fly through space in a way I never thought of doing before. Congrats.
That's awesome.
I got your word now, not a scratch.
Right.
Beautiful.
All right.
James Cox, while we will be watching your career with great interest, you can get Grand Theft A.I. right now, authored by James Cox. This is going to be the hottest novel of 2024 for science fiction fans and fans of great literature. The Matrix meets Blade Runner with Cox's cyberpunk debut. And we really want to drive a lot of eyeballs to the pages of this book.
I promise my readers, if you have read cyberpunk before, or if you haven't, you've never read anything like this.
Nice. Congratulations, James, on the publication of this novel, and of course your great career as a film director and somebody who's been able to tolerate Kyle Newman for almost as long as we have. So we bust on Kyle, and there's really nobody in our community we love and respect more than Kyle Newman, and we thank him for bringing you to us because what a great conversation
for bringing us together.
And really one of my all-time favorite rounds of the Yoda Questionnaire, I have to say. A lot of times they can be kind of superficial and surface level. You, sir, went way deep with your answers, and I really appreciate that.
It's a subject I love. And thank you guys for having me on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Stay in touch, James.
Will do, gentlemen.
Chewie, get us out of here!
right, that's going to wrap things up here for us this week on Rebel Force Radio. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us this week. Big thanks to James Cox. You can check out his new book, Grand Theft A.I. Just go over to jamescoxbooks.com or follow him on @JamesCoxBooks. Or head over to Amazon, order the book, Grand Theft A.I. Also, thank you to Ryan from Australia for making that awesome Rebel Force Radio tag. The challenge was for Ryan to get the Star Wars characters to say Rebel Force Radio. What was the deal with, I think got Alec Guinness to say Ray?
Right. Yeah. We did a complete breakdown of how they made that happen in The Force Awakens. Just look for the video on our YouTube channel and look for the title, How Did They Get Alec Guinness to Say Ray in The Force Awakens? And I completely deconstruct that sucker and show you exactly how it's done.
Yeah, so audio magic there. But yeah, seriously, thanks to Ryan for taking the time to do that. If you need more Rebel Force Radio in your life, and I'm sure you do, especially since we're only going to be doing one show a week for a little while here. Yeah, heaven forbid. You can get more Rebel Force Radio by just going over to patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio. And there you go. Bang. You just entered a larger world of more Rebel Force Radio in your life, including podcasts that you can't get anywhere else. Full show video. That's right, the podcast you're listening to right now, you could be watching. There's extras. You know, sometimes the audio podcast that's released isn't exactly the same as the video podcast. And it's a great community of folks over there. As I said before, phenomenal bonus podcasts that you cannot find anywhere else. They're only available to RFR Patreon supporters. So check that out. Or there you can, like I said, get to it at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio, or go over to rebelforceradio.com and click on that Patreon banner, and boom, you'll be transported as through hyperspace, and you'll be on your way to getting more and more Rebel Force Radio in your life. So thank you very much to all of our Patreon supporters. You guys really, really help make RFR happen in a big way. Speaking of video, you can find more Rebel Force Radio on our YouTube channel. That's the source for all of our after show live streams, including The Acolyte, which wrapped up earlier this week, all of The Bad Batch, all of Kenobi, all of Mandalorian seasons 1, 2, 3, the Book of Boba Fett. It's all there. Check it out. Rebel Force Radio on YouTube, and so much more. Follow us on the socials. We're on Instagram. We are on Facebook. We are on X at Rebel Force Radio or at RFR Rebel Force. Did I get that right? RFR Rebel Force, right? That's us on X. And the website for all things and everything Rebel Force Radio, rebelforceradio.com. And if you want to help us out, best way to do it is cheap. Just do what you're doing right now. Keep listening. Tell your friends, tell your family about Rebel Force Radio. Tell, that person in the office, person at the day job, loves Star Wars, but maybe they haven't been turned on to Rebel Force Radio. Well, turn them on to RFR. Tell them about the great podcast that you listen to each and every week. Helps spread the word, and we appreciate it so very much. So that's going to do it for us. Oh, I left out one thing. You know what else we love? We love reviews. So if your podcatcher of choice allows you to leave such a review, we love to have them. We read them all. Just one simple rule, please.
Make them good. Make them good.
That's one of those fancy 1977 radio effects to make you sound like Darth Vader.
I'm so inspired.
All right.
By the old radio stuff we play on the show.
We'll see you next time for Rebel Force Radio. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
I won $500.